Thanks for hanging in there with us. Let's head right over to Reverend Fuzz. Hey, can you hear us okay?
I can.
Do you have a question?
Yes, this is Reverend Fuzz. Am I on the air?
Yes, sir.
You are live on the air, Reverend Fuzz.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't know how to see TV on. And Councilman Mendez and Freddie O'Connell, I want to say publicly thank you guys for what y'all do as being city councilmen. Bless your heart. I was talking to Steve Glover for an hour tonight before we came on, and he mentioned...
Bless your heart, Reverend.
And bless y'all. People don't know how hard a job that is, how people yell at y'all and get emotional and might not agree sometimes and don't understand. And Mendez, you got your proposals, but thank you. So on the scooter thing, really I'm listening to the show tonight trying to make up my mind if I'm for or against it. And, you know, I keep vacillating in between this as I hear both of y'all talk. And this guy tonight said, Councilman Mendez, you were an expert on it. But I'm looking at, like, the scooter people, like, came from out of nowhere. Like, we're playing a game and this guy just runs on the field. You would normally, like, stop that game and, you know, let that guy play, you know, try out for the team or something. This is something, somebody just ran onto the field and wow, he's making all the plays and carrying the ball, and we're wondering, should we let him keep on playing? And where these scooter people come from? You know, they look like they're fun, and I think they can fit in maybe, but I don't think they're supposed to, like, be here right now. And not because of that, mainly, this is something I don't know if people are thinking about. These people need to be walking. I mean, this is a health, it impacts their health, not from just not getting the exercise, but from the risk and danger. How many people are getting actually, you know, injured or killed? Like 15 people at the hospital this week. In 1 week, these are different people, new people who wouldn't be hurt. And if our society will tolerate something like that, then in my mind, I'm really at the point of saying no to the scooters everywhere. Maybe they would work on the college campuses or something, or there could be a place, but as long as people are getting killed like this, guys, you know that our government officials, y'all got to regulate that stuff and be on top of that and tell them they can't do that. And they'll probably go along with you. They'll probably fix it. They'll probably say, okay, we'll just be on the college campuses or something. We won't let people get hurt anymore because of our scooters. And that's the only reason people are being hurt is because of the scooters. I think that's a wonderful idea. Congratulations to that company. But all of a sudden, you've taken over my corner, everybody's corner, and people are getting hurt. Whether it's one person, but it's like lots of people, hundreds of people are getting hurt and killed, and it's not supposed to be not even one person. And the people that don't get killed, them poor women and stuff, man, they be traumatized seeing and hearing about that. And our council people need to take a stand, you know, and investigate it and, you know, be friends, don't be the enemy. But, you know, the scooters just can't run out on the field and just start taking over. You know, I want to find a place for them. I think it might be, but that's all. Good night, guys, and thank you, and good luck in the elections.
Thanks, Reverend
Fuzz. I should clarify, I'm not Councilman Mendez.
Yeah. You do look a little bit.
A little bit. I think it's the hair. So
well, I'm glad to hear Reverend Fuzz embrace Vision Zero, right?
Yeah.
Which is the notion for infrastructure in a regulatory environment that says we eliminate any kind of fatalities, no matter which mode you're using. I mean, it might surprise him to learn that our number of pedestrian deaths has actually slowly been increasing through the years in Nashville, and we're up over 20, I think, pedestrian
We were 23 last year and 8 already this year. People killed just walking.
And so yet we are not looking to ban walking, right? And so I get the safety piece, but I think this ultimately comes back to, regardless of how, if there is a way in which these devices can safely operate in Nashville, it is getting that mix of infrastructure, which we know is lacking right now, the accountability piece there, and then still making sure that as we embrace this, we are trying to drive that number ever closer to zero for injuries and fatalities.
Well, to your point, I used to work on 1100 Broadway, our former building, and there was a crosswalk with a light, and it was taken as a suggestion by most of the traffic that was coming by, and that whole notion of also driver behavior, because drivers have to be much more responsible as well, and they have a responsibility not to hurt them. In the case of the tragic death, that was, from what I understand from the police report, that was obviously preventable. It was tragic, and it was late at night. But obviously we can't prevent deaths. We have deaths on cycling.
I wouldn't say we can't prevent deaths. I think we can do a much better job of preventing deaths, right? I mean, I actually worked with Nora as chair of the Public Works Committee on Metro Council to have basically a public meeting about their impossible crossings report, right? The most fatal intersections in the city. Every one of those we leave as the status quo contributes to what might be preventable injuries and deaths, right? When we take action and respond to the data we have in hand and make those infrastructure improvements, we have prevented harm to pedestrians.
Well, like Church Street Bridge is a good example of that. I never received angry calls from drivers. Why'd they take away my lanes? But they have protected people, and would something like that, a solution like that, be acceptable?
Well, and I think, you have to place it in the broader context, because, not just in Nashville, but nationally, we're seeing the most vulnerable road users, people walking, biking, and now people on scooters, are at most at risk. And unfortunately, I think for the one scooter fatality we've had in Nashville, where Brady was killed, is a perfect example. Yes, it was late at night, and yes, there's probably fault on all sides, but we also know as bike advocates, that's one of the most dangerous spots in the city to bike. I have a good friend, Catherine, who was actually hit by a car at exactly that spot just 2 years prior, and has been trying for the last 2 years to advocate for improvements to that spot, because anyone who bikes there, who kind of predates the scooters, know that that section of DeBumbering is really dangerous. Cars are whipping down the hill and entering the on-ramp to the interstate.
That's one of the rare entry points that has very basic infrastructure that supports a non-car mode, and yet it's routinely closed, routinely blocked.
Nearly always.
Right, and so. Even its existence, it's like a superficial example of infrastructure.
Yeah, and I think that is where, it's not just enough to say we put a stripe of paint down. We really need to make sure the infrastructure we're putting in makes sense and is working and is actually making sure people are safer. And I think, there have been designs for fixing DeBumbering. Catherine, who was hit there, has started a petition to really demand, how many more people do we have to have hit biking or on scooters there before the city takes action on those designs. But I think that's, the prime example of it really is part of a broader conversation. We can't lose sight of, there's a lot of people out on our streets on a lot of different modes that are being injured, and it is unacceptable, and we should never accept injuries or fatalities on our streets, and unfortunately we do all the time.
I spoke to Brady's parents on the phone for a story that we ran, and his mom is just very skeptical until the final report comes out, because she said, what is the possibility he was maybe looking over his shoulder and just accidentally went from the sidewalk into the street, looking at the people behind him, making sure they were okay. So, he was somehow on the sidewalk and then in the street, and that's when the Nissan Pathfinder struck him. But she said there's just still a lot of unanswered questions as far as that investigation goes.
And see, I think that's, to Nora's point, this is tough, because I can't imagine that, right? I'm, as a former urban bike commuter, I'm just so grateful that in years of urban biking in Nashville, I never had any incidents with motorists. It wasn't because I was protected by the infrastructure. It was because I took a League of American Bicyclists Road 1 course, got to the point where I felt very comfortable doing it, looked for routes before they were even available in places like Google Maps, and before we even had the infrastructure we have today, which includes a better mix of greenways and other things. But I also wonder, had he had protected infrastructure, would he have been in the roadway in the path of the Pathfinder anyway, right? And that's the key question.
Let's head over to Alfred. Hey, you're on. Do you have a question for us? Can you hear us all right? Alfred?
Yes.
You're on open line.
Yes, I'm a disabled person. I live out in Madison, and I've got an idea that might work for the Metro Council. Y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. EPA just put basically maintenance and everything out here in Madison.
Yeah, Alfred, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Can you call back and we'll answer your questions? I think the signal's a little bit bad. Sorry about that.
So Madison's a perfect example because I've been talking with some friends about infrastructure and crosswalks because of the propensity for collisions there, and you know, and I know people who would like to see them there, but they're also afraid even to walk because lighting and limited ability to even cross, you know, Gallatin Pike, for example.
Yeah, that's one of the worst spots in the city for walking.
I recently did a story with a disabled man who had a service dog, and he was a veteran, and he says the scooter driver or rider hit him, and his dog now needs a hip replacement. And the story got picked up all over the place, but I think that his story has a lot of other people like this man in Madison just concerned, and some of them even scared to be in these areas where scooters are because behind them they might not hear them or see them coming. So that certainly brings up.
So I've heard, I mean, I think again this comes back to how can, if we're trying to create an environment where this could work, because I will tell you, Andrew, you're exactly right. I mean, you started this off by saying that there are strong opinions on both sides, right? If I asked District 19 to raise their hands about should we ban them, you'd get a whole bunch of people that would be like, yes, ban them tomorrow. Why didn't you ban them yesterday? And yet, in that same, like, and that the closer you get to downtown, I think the strength of feeling increases in that way. Particularly, also, if you work downtown and you come out your door and suddenly a scooter zooming by you on the sidewalk, right? And I hate this idea too that we're creating a collision of modes that is maybe less helpful, right? Where we're endangering pedestrians by enabling another mode, but that is one of the most common concerns I hear. As you get out, though, into neighborhoods like mine, Salem Town, where we're a couple miles off of Broadway, I know multiple of my neighbors who have begun using these as literally commuting options if they work in downtown or work in the Gulch or work in one of these urban corridors. It's much easier for them than paying for parking, looking for parking. You know, keeps the idea like they can limit the use of their car, keeping their overall household transportation costs down. And I've heard from those people in equal parts, right? I mean, so there would be, if we banned them, I'd see another group of hands go up that said, wait, why did you ban those? We love scooters, don't take them away from us, right? And so if we're trying to find that sweet spot where one group is not just so eager to raise their hands to say ban them, or another group is saying, you know, like, we'd like these, can we find some way to make that work? I think the hardest problem to solve is that issue of when does the infrastructure get there, right? Like, Madison's even further behind downtown, right? And so if we put scooters into neighborhoods and other communities that have, and like, that are a decade behind on sidewalk delivery, and imagine when we're actually going to get to complete streets implementation, it's hard for me to imagine that playing out well citywide.
Hold that thought. We have to head to our last commercial, but hopefully you guys will stay with us because we still have some of you guys on the line.